Hi guys, welcome to the channel. This is What If Goku Was in Fairy Tale. Before we start, remember to like and subscribe to help the channel. Also check the description for the creator of the fanfic. Chapter 17. Archenemy Kagura was careful to never let her back face the orange-clad teen while they were helping the Rune Knights load up all of the Harpy Feather Mages up in paddy wagons. He seemed friendly enough, but that meant nothing. Nobody would help others so freely without wanting something in return. He wanted something from her. There was no question in her mind about that. It was only a question of what. After locking up the last dark mage, Kagura made her way over towards the Rune Knight captain, taking a roundabout route that never led anyone too close to her. Sir, I have dealt with the criminals and would like to collect the bounty now. Oh, you're that girl from town, aren't you? Don't worry, little girl, the Rune Knights have taken care of the criminals. What? Sir, I have taken out these criminals and I would like the bounty now. Children shouldn't be walking around picking fights with dangerous criminals, that's what we Rune Knights are for. I think that you'll find that the Knights did their job and eliminated the threat, meaning there is no need to pay anyone a bounty. Kagura's eyes narrowed. Slowly, casually, she shifted her left foot back slightly and gave her knees a slight bend, sinking into her stance. Her hand crept towards the empty sheath she carried while her shoulders rolled slightly, testing to make sure the straps of her backpack were out of the way. Without a thought, you would claim all of the credit. You told me that I could get 5,000 jewels if I could take out these criminals for you. What happened to our deal? I'm sorry, I have no idea what you are talking about. I mean, do you know how irresponsible it would be of me as a captain in the military to recruit an unlicensed teenager to get involved in fights to the death with vicious thieves and murderers? It's simply unheard of, impossible. No girl, the military took down, and that's all there is to it. I needed that money. I cannot continue my journey without any sort of supplies or resources. There's nothing I can do, miss. I am unable to pay a bounty to someone like you. If you truly are that desperate, I suppose I can offer you some of my own money. The man pulled out a small purse with a handful of coins, maybe 50 jewels in total. The scowl of the young girl deepened when she looked over the meager amount of cash. How am I supposed to live off of this? This would barely even pay for my lunch, let alone allow me to complete my journey. Well, at least you got a free meal then. Have a nice day, miss. Kagura was barely able to restrain herself as the soldier walked off to the front of his squad and started their march back towards their outpost. She wanted desperately to go after them, to force them to give her the bounty. But she knew that nothing good could come from threatening the law enforcement. What am I going to do now? She muttered, glaring at the Knights. Do you need some help? She glanced back and tried not to frown. That Goku person was standing behind her, smiling widely. Without any more distractions around her, she looked him over in detail. Kind eyes and a wide smile, whether they were honest or not she could not yet say. He had a thin red staff on his back, no noticeable runes, markings, or any other indicator of magic anywhere on its length. A sturdy weapon against a normal foe, though it would likely be unable to hold up against a serious assault. The GI and calloused hands suggested the bow staff wasn't his choice of weapon, instead it indicated one who specialized in hand-to-hand combat. His stance indicated experience, the casual ready stance of a person who was ready to fight at any moment no matter the occasion. A dangerous person, though one who would likely not attack first. The once-over had taken just over a second, though it was unlikely that it had escaped his notice. You didn't leave, she commented, her voice flat and questioning. Well, I was about to, but then I heard how upset you sounded and thought I'd see if you were alright. Despite making her posture seem relaxed, Kagura was coiled like a spring, ready to move at any moment. She was alone with a stranger in the middle of the woods, she would not be dropping her guard anytime soon. It is nothing, just my plans to leave the country and get to NB Anu have been delayed for the near future. What are you doing over there? I just have a pair of errands that need to be taken care of. Goku quickly scrutinized the girl, giving her a once-over similar to the one she had given him moments before. Kagura squashed down her nerves from that gaze along with the curiosity of just what he had seen. Nimbus. Kagura cocked an eyebrow at Teen's sudden shout towards the sky. Goku just stared up expectantly into the sky and the dark-haired girl craned her neck upwards, trying to spot whatever it is he was looking for. A small pudding sound reached her ears and she turned towards the forest. Over the trees a small yellow cloud burst into sight and came to a stop right between the two. Kagura looked at the little ball of puff curiously and took a few careful steps towards it. It's cute. she murmured softly, reaching out an uncertain hand to touch the cloud. Her lips curled up into a smile at the cottony feel of the cloud and giggled when Nimbus made a content purring sound. Goku's lip turned upward at the sight, and after a few seconds he was confident that his idea could work. Hop on. Kagura glanced up at his happy smile, then back to the little yellow cloud. Goku chuckled at her obvious confusion only to receive a glare. In demonstration, the older teen walked over and stepped up on top of Nimbus and held out a hand to Kagura. Come on, see if it will let you ride. Cautiously the girl grabbed the outstretched limb and climbed atop the cloud. She gently bounced her heels, trying to determine how the cloud was holding her up. Nimbus only lets people it likes ride. But now you don't need to worry about getting to NB Anum. If we go full out we could probably get there in a few hours, but most people can't really handle going that fast. I think Levi said sometime about G-force and the sound barrier or something. Oh well, it's not that important. At the fastest, safe, speed it should only be a couple of days. That is a very generous offer, but I have no way to pay you or do anything in return. I'm afraid I'll have to decline. What? Why would I want anything in return? I'm offering to help, I don't need anything in return. Impossible. People always wanted something from her, nobody ever helped her for free. There was no possible way that he would take her a quarter of the way across the globe just because he wanted to be friendly. There would be a price, he would try to take something from her. Oh wait, there is one thing, and there it was. Which would it be this time? Would he try and take one of her precious few belongings? Some future undefined favor? Yet another leering request for her body. I want to spar with you at some point whole we travel. What? You seem pretty strong, you beat that big group by yourself. So I want to see how good you are myself. I suppose that will be acceptable. She did need to get to NB anew. The thought of putting her trust in this stranger and his cloud was galling, but so was the thought of traveling on foot with no money and little food for months. She could always jump off the cloud if she had to, she had nothing to fear from falling. Great, so where are we going anyways? I need to get to the Medalia mountain. It is only a few miles inland and it should be very easy to identify from the sky. Goku nodded and Nimbus began to move, lifting the two up into the air and taking off across the landscape. Yeah, I think I've been around there before. I was doing a job to take out some group of slavers with some of my guild mates. Goku couldn't see Kagura's eyes narrow when he mentioned the slavers. We took them out pretty quick, they weren't very strong. But Urza was real happy when we busted all their prisoners out, she's had some pretty bad experiences with slavers. Has she? Her cold tone bounced off of him unnoticed as he nodded. I first met her when she was on the run from a group of slavers actually, I helped her get rid of them. She never talks about it, but I'm pretty sure that something happened to her. She had an eye patch on when I met her until I accidentally gave her a weird healing beam. Do you know anything about these slavers? Did you find out where they operate from? Nah, never asked them any questions that I can remember. We just took them down and that was that. Have you encountered any other groups like them? A few, there always seem to be a bunch around this side of Fury. This side, I don't think I've had to deal with them anywhere else, but I guess that doesn't mean that they aren't there. I can't say for sure. That's enlightening. Thank you for the information. Why are you so interested in the slavers anyways? That is none of your concern. Her harsh tone finally seemed to register with Goku. He glanced back at his new companion. Her eyes had narrowed into slits, glaring down at the world as it sped by below them. Her body had tensed up and her right hand kept clenching into a fist then relaxing, over and over again. Frowning to himself, Goku faced forward, watching as the ground turned to ocean beneath them. Apparently Urza wasn't the only one with past troubles with people like that. Hours later, a man stumbled into clearing, his black cloak flapping lazily around his shoulders. He paused looking at the damage around the clearing. He blinked, weren't there supposed to be a bunch of mage guys standing guard outside the headquarters? He strolled up to the tavern, there was a paper stuck to the door. The Dark Guild, Harpy's Feather has henceforth been disbanded by Captain Joffrey of the Rune Knights. Glory to the captain, he read. The man sighed, scratching the back of his head. That sucked. Now he was gonna have to make someone pay. With that he faded away in a gentle breeze, disappearing into the sky. Goku certainly was a chatterbox. Kagura had spent hours listening to the man prattle on about anything that caught his interest. She ended up drifting off to sleep in the middle of a story about a giant bear he'd once wrestled with a friend. When she woke up, her groggy mind had panicked at being in midair with a stranger, and she had nearly punched Goku right off the cloud. "Good morning," he cheerfully said, her fist still clenched tightly in his hand. She grunted her own greeting and ripped her hand away. Goku shrugged to himself and turned back to what he was doing. He had brought the cloud lower to the water and was standing with his staff in both hands, staring at the waves intently. After a few moments, he swung the pole around it extended, sending one end straight into the water. With a flick of his wrist, 3 fish were flung high into the air and fell victim to a trio of ki blasts that left them very well done. Nimbus dipped slightly to allow Goku to catch the fish as they flew by, and he passed one over behind him to Kagura. "Breakfast." The younger teen nodded silently and pulled out a small knife to remove the scales before nibbling on her morsel. She mentally took note of what she had just seen. His staff was magical after all, and therefore probably more durable than it looked. He could also shoot energy from his hands, and he hadn't summoned a magic circle to do it. A rare talent, not totally unheard of, but it showed a competence with such a skill that was worthy of note. He was more dangerous than she had first thought. As she ate, an idle memory entered her mind, a picture of her brother standing beside her over a decade ago. The pair moved around their tiny kitchen, preparing a big breakfast before they planned to head out and meet with some of their friends. It was one of the last times she remembered smiling without reservations, just happiness. It took her some effort to tear herself free from the memory, and when she did, she found her eyes had grown misty. Scowling, she wiped them clear again before biting into her fish more savagely. Goku merely ripped his 2 fish apart with his bare hands, moaning happily as the juice of the meat dripped down his face. Kagura quickly discovered, like many people before her, that it was better to eat facing away from the young man to keep from losing her appetite. As they finished their improvised meal, Kagura tried to tune out Goku's rambling of how someone called Happy had taught him many secret techniques on how to catch fish. Eventually, Kagura got to the point where she could no longer take it without comment. "Goku, yes, you have done nothing but talk about your friends, yet you leave for who knows how long to ship a stranger part way across the world. Won't they be worried if you suddenly just vanish with no warning?" "Well, I kinda left them for a while. I had a fight with my best friend and I needed some time to cool off. I was planning on heading back to see them eventually, but then I ran into you." Kagura furrowed her brows, catching the all too familiar tone of sadness in his words. It really wasn't her business though, it had nothing to do with her. But he was trying to help her though. "What did you fight about?" "She was keeping secrets from me. I guess you could say she betrayed my trust. I needed a few days to fly around and think about what I'm gonna do." He paused for a moment. "It has helped. I think I understand why she did what she did. I don't like it, but I understand. It was a big deal, but it's not worth losing a friend over. I've already decided, I'm going to forgive her." "I see." Kagura didn't press for details. "I'm not sure I could do the same in your situation. I do not give trust easily, and I wouldn't give someone a second chance if they broke it." "Are you sure that you can continue to trust her, even when your friend has proven that she is capable of breaking that trust?" "Of course. She was actually trying to help me out, she just went about it the wrong way." "Interesting. Even so, many would not be so quick to forgive as you are, and you haven't even heard anything from her yet in her defense. I'm willing to give my friends the benefit of the doubt. But what about you though? You have any friends?" No, I haven't had time for friends, I've been on the move around the country for the last decade." "What, seriously? You don't have any friends at all?" "I've been traveling all over the place too, and I've made all sorts of friends. That is not an option for me. I have neither the time nor the patience to develop friendships while I am trying to accomplish my objectives." "Well, what's so important that you're doing anyways?" Several expressions flashed across the girl's face, expressions that Goku could not read but others might identify as indignation, anger, confusion, and then reluctant acceptance. When she spoke again, it was so softly that he could barely hear it. "I just want to save my brother." Goku was silent for a while, letting a few puzzle pieces fall into place before replying. "The Slavers." She nodded. "A huge raiding party just attacked my village one day out of nowhere. They killed most of the adults and captured the rest, even the children. I was the only one to escape, another girl had to sacrifice herself so that I could. My brother was one of the ones taken, so I decided to try and find them." Tears formed in her eyes only to be whisked away in the wind as they sped through the air. Goku's face scrunched up, the pure emotion in her words reached his ears. "But I knew I couldn't save him as I was, so I've been training." All the time I'm training and trying to get strong enough so that I can free him when I find him, so that I can free everyone. That is my only goal, my only desire. I just want to see my brother again. So that's why you're coming out here then? You found out that your brother is somewhere on NB Anu and you're going to rescue him? No, the group operates solely in Fury. I know for a fact that he's somewhere in the country. But it doesn't matter anyways, I couldn't rescue him right now even if I knew where he was. When trying to find their base, I've learned a bit about their organization. I've heard a lot of rumors that whoever is in charge is an S-class mage. I cannot compete with that at my current level. So while I was trying to find my brother, I was also trying to find something that would allow me to fight at that level as quickly as possible, and I found this. Kagura reached into her pack and pulled out the hilt of a katana along with several pieces of a splintered blade. This is archenemy. It's an ancient weapon designed centuries ago as a way for humans to be able to stand up to demons and dragons alike. Its cutting power is so great that it can function like another sword while sheathed, capable of slicing through armor like tissue paper. But when out of the sheath, the sword can cut through anything, even a dragon's scales. It was rumored to have been destroyed by a surprise attack from a great black dragon and it vanished for centuries. But then a few months ago I found it. What? Like, laying on the ground? Kagura shrugged. More like in the ruins of a razed city. I took a sliver of it to a blacksmith to have it analyzed and he told me that the sword was made from a rare metal only found in small quantities in the metallic mountains of NB Anu. NB Anu does not trade with Fury, especially not with such a rare metal. So I'm hoping to recover some of the metal myself so that I can repair the blade. With it, I may stand a chance. Sounds like one heck of a weapon. But why do you have to do this alone though? Couldn't you just request a job to a guild to take care of it? A job to the guilds? The guilds, above anything else, are a business. They may save people and work for others, but they do it for a profit and for prestige. If I wanted to request a job, I would have to post a long-term job with very few leads and an almost guaranteed fight with an S-class mage at the end. A job like that would be classed as S-class at a minimum, SS or higher would be quite likely. The amount of jewels to fund such a mission is in the 100 millions, it would take me years to raise such an amount. Even if I joined a guild myself, there is no guarantee that they would help and they would also take a large portion of whatever I earn to help fund themselves. At least if I do this myself, I know for a fact that something is being done about this now, not being put off over and over until the money is raised. Her voice dripped with enough venom to lay even Deliora out, some past experience obviously still angering her now. Well, that meant there was only one thing left to do. I'll help you find him if you want. Kagura blinked, staring at him with incredulously. He just smiled back. I told you before that I have no way to pay you. Neither you nor your guild would benefit from it. Kagura said slowly, as though she thought he couldn't quite grasp this point. That doesn't matter, I want to help. I can help you get your family back and I even get to fight someone really strong in the process, it'll be great. I can even ask some people from my guild to help. Urza would definitely want in just because of the Slavers, and Natsu and Gray would probably have a contest to see who could beat up the most guards. Urza and I are S-class by the way, so we're plenty strong. If I harass enough people around the place, I'm sure someone could help us find out where the base is. You would really do all of that? Sure thing. What are friends for? Kagura just stared at him, as though she herself couldn't grasp the concept at hand. Thank you. I am not sure what to say. But, if your offer of aid is genuine, then I will gladly accept your help. No problem. So, what's your brother look like? I can't find the guy if I don't know what to look for. It has been a long time since I last saw him, but he has brown hair and eyes and his skin is darker than mine. That's really all I can say. I don't know how much he's changed while growing up. As for his personality, you honestly remind me of him a bit. You both seem to be driven by a strong desire to help people. That's cool, I hope I get the chance to meet him. It's not much to go on, but hopefully we can find something. So, how are you going to fix archenemy? Do you need to take it to a blacksmith after? No, a blacksmith couldn't accomplish the task. It takes a certain kind of magic to shape the blade, a magic that I thankfully possess. Oh cool, it must be super rare and powerful if it's needed to make a weapon like that. What is it? I can manipulate gravity surrounding an object. The metal of the sword is almost impervious to physical damage, even when superheated, like for forging a regular sword. To shape it you need more force than almost any human can produce. Using gravity magic though, one can greatly magnify the force delivered to the metal, enough that it can be properly manipulated. So it lets you hit stuff extra hard? Not exactly. I could increase the weight of a hammer during its downward swing to increase the force of the blow, but if I used that power on myself I'd become heavy and it would become hard to move. So it would be like wearing weights. In a basic sense, yes. That sounds perfect. You can use that for training. What? Well, you said you wanted to get a lot stronger, right? So if you use your power on yourself then it would be like weight training. You could get a whole lot stronger if you do that long enough. It would help get you up to S rank a whole lot faster. I've never even considered anything like that. I'm not even sure if that would be safe. If you want to get as strong as you can, you have to make everything a training exercise, that way you're always getting stronger. I figure, as long as I don't stop training I'll be able to protect my friends and beat any threat that might come. The rest of the trip consisted of Goku giving training advice to the younger teen, methods that he had developed himself through non-stop dedication and almost pathological desire to improve. Hours later, as the sun was beginning to set, NB and Nu came into view. Nimbus dived down and brought them to the very center of the mountain range, coming to a gentle stop a foot off the ground. Kagura quickly hopped off and began to look around at the massive peaks surrounding them. Thank you very much for helping me get here. When I return to Fury I'll go to Magnolia, and if you are serious about your offer we can see what we can dig up. What are you talking about? I'm not leaving yet. You're not, but shouldn't you get back to your friends? It's getting dark and besides, it's not like I'm on any schedule to get back. But I want to help out with the sword too, and you still owe me a fight. Kagura paused for a moment before sighing and setting her pack onto the ground. Very well, I suppose that we can get in a spar before I try to find dinner. With a smirk, Goku hopped off the cloud and allowed it to depart back into the skies, waiting for the next time it would be called. Both teens stretched out, loosening tight muscles after hours of inactivity before sinking into their respective fighting stances. Goku allowed the girl to make the first move and the girl charged forward, swinging the empty sheath in an overhand blow. Partway through the swing she increased its gravity, adding enough force to the blow to draw an appreciative grunt from the martial artist. She followed with a series of jabs, her face passive as Goku dodged or deflected each strike. Suddenly his body felt twice as heavy and in his surprise a strike passed his guard and caught his rib. Goku snaked his arm out and grabbed the sheath, pulling it in and Kagura with it, knocking her off balance. An open hand strike immediately connected with her gut and the girl doubled over, struggling to catch her breath. Goku took a few steps back, watching her closely as she straightened her back and leveled her weapon at him once more. Before she moved, her gravity powers flared again, reducing Goku's weight to nothing. Then she dashed in, swinging her the sheath and knocking the surprised fighter up into the air, unable to control his movements. Goku waited for a moment before acting. When his rotation had his legs aimed at the sky and his torso aimed at Kagura, he flared his ki behind him, propelling him through the air fast enough to catch the girl off guard. As he slammed into her, the gravity manipulation failed, allowing Goku to pin her to the ground and rip the sheath away from her. Her shocked face at the sudden and rapid defeat was barely acknowledged as Goku went to secure the win. He calmly aimed a glowing palm at the girl until she nodded, acknowledging her defeat. Goku stepped back and offered her a hand, pulling her back up to her feet and returned her weapon to her. Alright, a few things. First, your balance isn't properly centered. You were leaning on your right too much, it made it easier to pull you off balance. Next, you were too slow with your attacks. Even when archenemy is fixed, someone can beat you if they move fast enough. Your attacks were lingering out in the air for just long enough for me to grab them. You have to pull away your weapon just as fast as you thrust it out. You were very tense the whole time, your muscles were tense. That will slow you down and tire you out faster in a long battle. You need to be loose when you are moving, then tighten your muscles only when you are blocking or landing a strike. It takes practice, but it helps you move easier and increases how long you can fight. Last, you need to work more on your defense. You're self-taught, right? It shows in your style. You haven't really fought someone on your level before, at least nobody good enough to give you any trouble. Because of that you were unprepared to guard against me. On the other hand, your style was obviously made with an actual sword in mind, so it's probably awkward to use with just the hilt right now. Your footwork was quick and fluid, you didn't misstep once. Your use of your powers was really good too. I was caught off guard by it twice even though I knew what to look for. Overall I'd say you did pretty good. I'd rank you as a high B or a low A mage for both power and technique. A lot of mages only have one or the other, so having a grasp of both could give you a bit of an advantage. I'd say you could be an S-class mage in just a few years, maybe even faster if you found someone to train you. Thank you for the information, but how could you tell that much from a fight that didn't last a full minute? My grandpa taught me that it's really important to be able to analyze and pick apart someone's fighting skills after only a few moments, so that you can counter their moves as quickly as possible. It took me a few years to be able to do it like that, but it gives me an advantage when I can spot flaws in someone's defense after just a few seconds. I see. Would it be possible for you to teach such a technique? I dunno. I've never had to teach it before. It's kinda hard to teach because everyone has their own unique fighting style and it takes a lot of experience to be able to pick them all apart just from sight. I've helped other people in Fairy Tail before with stuff like form and endurance training, but nobody has ever asked me to teach them anything about my fighting style. A lot of it is just being really observant. I can give you pointers and help you out with it whenever you want, but how good you get at it's going to depend on you. Very well. It's getting too dark for us to begin searching for the metal I need tonight. Can you give me some tips as we make dinner? As Goku and Kagura discussed fighting tactics and hunted for food, miles away Shadowgear was wandering the dark streets of Magnolia. Levi smiled to herself as Jet and Droy strolled behind her, begging her for every scrap of information they could get about the last mission and complimenting her endlessly for any little thing she did. After everything that had happened over the past few days, this was doing wonders for helping restore her confidence. What would happen next would not. A loud metallic clang behind them was all the warning they got before a club smashed into the back of Jet's head, knocking him out into a small but rapidly forming pool of his own blood. Levi's shriek was drowned out by Droy's roar of rage, and the skinny mage sent a barrage of vines at the sudden attacker, hoping to ensnare him and pin him down. But the attacker broke free with a sneer of contempt, slashing through all of the plants with a blade sprouting from his arms. Then the blade turned into a spiked club that crashed into the plant mage's head and sent him toppling to the ground. Levi took a few steps back, her right hand creeping towards her pocket as the attacker turned away from her downed teammates and focused on her. Stalling for time, she called out, "Who are you? Why are you doing this?" The figure took another step towards her and she could finally make out some details on him. Long spiky hair flowed down his back, a black jacket, and metal studs pierced through his nose and replacing his eyebrows. His appearance was vaguely familiar, maybe a famous mage from another guild. Unfortunately, she didn't have the time to try and figure out exactly who. The man finally rushed the bookworm right as she finally found the item she was searching for. Less than a foot away from her, the attacker saw a scarlet-red quill thrust before his face before he was consumed in a fiery explosion. Levi saw the man fly back towards the end of the street and bounce off a wall before smashing into a trash can. Sighing in the relief, the girl hunched down to check on her teammates. The damage wasn't as bad as it looked, neither were in critical condition. All she had to do was get them back to the guild and then. Movement. In an act of instinct drilled into her from constant surprise sparring matches, Levi flashed her quill across her thigh, granting her just enough speed to leap out of the way of a blade that would have cut her in two. Spinning on her heels, she turned to face the enraged face of her attacker right before another fireball smashed into his face. On guard this time, it only sent him back a step and soon he was charging towards her again. Levi fired off another trio of fireballs, the script flowing naturally from the phoenix feather, but when they all detonated on the same spot, one after another, she knew that her opponent hadn't even budged this time. In desperation, she fired again and again, unleashing the entirety of her flame-based arsenal. Explosion, fire, detonation, pyro, igneous, flare, until both her vocabulary and her stamina were left exhausted. 20 blasts flew forth from her pen until she was struggling to stand upright and the stones in the walkway had begun to sizzle. As Levi tried to catch her breath, the smoke from the flames began to fade away, leaving an entirely metallic figure stalking towards her, blackened with soot and grinning. As her vision began to fade, her memory finally clicked into place. Gajeel, Red Fox of Phantom Lord. The Iron Dragon Slayer. Well, maybe the fairy trash isn't quite as pathetic as I thought, maybe this is gonna be fun after all. Gajeel sneered, pinching out the still burning ends of his hair. Kagura woke to the smell of cooking lizard. Her back was stiff, the hard ground of the Medalia Mountains made rest difficult. She forced herself to her feet with a loud crack of her joints and rose to see a snake wider than her torso and longer than a train car over a giant bonfire. Morning, Kagura. I found this crawling around near you this morning. He looked pretty hungry. But then I thought that we didn't really get a big dinner last night, so this guy would be perfect. I was about to wake you up, it's just about done. You found that giant snake, killed it, made a fire large enough to cook a feast, and did all of this without waking me up. Yep. It was weird too, I thought you would have woken up a lot easier than that, being a traveler and all. No big deal though, eat up so we can get to work on your sword. With a snake steak big enough for 3, Kagura left most of her meal untouched as she watched with a sort of terrified fascination as Goku devoured enough food to feed a small village. He never slowed, never tired, he just ate and ate until every last bit had vanished into the black hole that was his stomach. Then he was on his feet, ready to dash off to try and find the supplies Kagura needed. Alright, my original plan was to sneak into a mining facility near the edge of the mountains to borrow everything I need. The metal is supposedly only found in the very center of the mountains, it'd take weeks to get through that far to get enough for the sword. It's in the center. That's easy then. Goku held a hand out before him and formed an oversized spirit ball, equal in size to even the largest humans. Then with a little push he sent it slowly towards the nearest mountain. With no resistance the ball slowly dug into the mountain, a cheery martial artist and stupefied swordswoman walking behind it. A few hundred meters in the spirit ball began to fluctuate, growing dimmer before it was sucked inside a vein of a pure white metal. The vein flashed blue for a brief second before fading again, leaving the teens in darkness. Goku tried to light up another ball of energy as a light source, but once more it was quickly devoured by the metal. So, that's probably it, right? I believe so. Now we need to get it outside somehow. If I manipulate the pressure around here with my gravity magic I might be able to get it to fall apart piece by piece. Then we could just carry them all outside. Goku looked at the faintly glowing vein in the rocks for a moment, thinking over the girl's plan. That sounds too slow. Let's try this instead. The martial artist threw a barrage of punches that perfectly outlined the vein before he ripped it straight out of the wall. Once again the fighter led the way back to their campsite, his bemused companion trailing behind him. Somehow, she had felt it would require a great deal more effort to get the metal, but, whatever, they had it now so she supposed it didn't matter. So, Goku said, how exactly are we going to get the make the blade? Almost all of the forging will be done by my magic. The problem is that the ore itself isn't pure, there are more common metals, such as iron and copper mixed in. If I shape those into the blade it will just break, so they must be separated out. We need to heat all of the ore until we melt everything that isn't the metal we need. Until it is purified and given shape the metal will have just the smallest degree of flexibility. I'll shape what's left with my magic and then fuse it with the hilt. The fire you made for breakfast should work for now, it seems like it will produce enough heat. Returning to the campsite, Kagura fetched the sword fragments and pulled out a small metal tub specially designed to survive the temperatures that they would need. They took the tub and hooked it to the power pole, using its length and near indestructibility to put the pot in the very center of the flames. It sat there through most of the day, surrounded in a blazing inferno that the martial artist tended to every hour. In between the two practiced and sparred, Kagura intent on fixing every possible flaw in her skills. She needed to be a warrior that matched the power of her blade. It was the only way to match an S-class mage, a powerful weapon wouldn't be enough by itself. For however long he offered it, she would accept his help and improve as much as she could. It was late afternoon before the pair finally decided to call their string of matches to a halt. Kagura collected archenemy's hilt from her bag and stood beside the towering blaze. Goku retrieved the power pole from where he had left it on the ground, slowly extending the weapon until it managed to hook the handle of the pot. Wincing slightly from the heat, Goku reeled the staff in, bringing the red-hot container over to them. Kagura stared at the pot anxiously as Goku carefully set it down atop a flat rock. Everything now depended on her and her powers. If archenemy was to be properly reborn, she needed to get every single detail exactly right. She was confident in her abilities, but the pressure required would be gigantic. Perhaps training so hard right before this had been a mistake, but it was too late to change that now. Her timeframe for saving Simon depended on the sword, she needed its power. The girl closed her eyes and took a few deep breaths, trying to silence her nerves. In, out, in, out. Her eyes snapped open again, a fire burning within that scorched away every feeling of doubt. She gave her traveling companion a single sharp nod and the pot's lid came off. The man materialized inside of the local Rune Knight barracks, his cloak flapping around him as if in a sudden breeze. His appearance didn't go unnoticed, The rune knights all around him stiffened at the sudden intrusion. Hey guys. The man smiled. I'm looking for a guy named Joffrey, apparently he's a captain. Is he here? That would be me. The man looked over and saw a fancily dressed knight sitting behind a desk and glaring at him. Who are you? Joffrey demanded. Well, never mind, it doesn't matter. I can tell by your cloak that you are a member of those harpy feather mages, meaning you're a criminal. Oh well. The man laughed, scratching the back of his head. You got me pegged there. I presume you're here to free your guild mates or some such nonsense. I was kinda planning on more of an avenging them kind of thing really. Fool. Joffrey scoffed. We took down every one of your guild mates without a single casualty. And you expect to defeat us alone? Men, arrest this idiot. The rune knights surrounding them saluted and advanced, weapons drawn. Then as one, they collapsed. So that was fun. The man said, grinning at suddenly very lonely looking captain, I guess that just leaves you buddy. He took a step forward. And no wait. This is clearly just a misunderstanding. Joffrey yelped, falling backwards out of his chair in an effort to get away. That right, yes. We only arrested your guild mates, we aren't the ones who took them down. The man paused, tilting his head to the side. Okay, I'll bite. Who was it then? A young teen, a girl. I never caught her name. She attacked your guild. And what did this girl look like? Young, black hair, carried around a sheath with no sword, dressed mostly in white. I don't remember much else. Okay, and why did this girl do that? How should I know? Really? A girl takes down a bunch of dark mages and the rune knights don't even investigate. The man took another step forward, causing Joffrey to scramble backwards until he hit the wall. Smells suspicious if you ask me. She took them down to get a bounty. Fair enough. How much did she get for them? We didn't pay her. The man nodded to himself, clearly mulling over what he'd been told. So let me make sure I got this. A young girl single-handedly took down my entire guild, in order to collect a bounty from you, which you didn't pay even though she did your job for you. Fearfully, the captain nodded. Okay, that story is so dumb I think I have no choice but to believe it. Guess I'd better go find her then. Sorry for bothering you. He turned and strode toward the door but paused at the entrance. Oh yeah, one last thing. He swept his hand back towards the captain and suddenly Joffrey was swept off the floor, slamming into the ceiling with a crunch only to be yanked back down into the floor before he was blasted backwards through the wall. If you're gonna behave like that, at least have the decency to call yourself a criminal like I do. With that the man spun around and vanished into thin air. Thanks for listening. If you want the next part of this video be sure to like, subscribe and comment and hit that bell notification. See you next time.